They never saw this coming, but deep down, you did. You felt it your whole life. That pull, that undeniable knowing that you were different, that you were meant for something greater. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of a moment that changes everything. You were never just another piece in their game. You were the one who saw through the illusion, the one who refused to be silenced, the one who carried a truth so powerful it shattered the lies they built their world upon. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could rewrite reality, but you held the pen the whole time. And now, it's time. Everything they feared is happening. The masks are slipping, the stories are crumbling, and justice is knocking on their door. They spent so long praying for your silence. Now, they'll have to face your voice. You are not just here to watch history unfold. You are here to rewrite it. And whether they like it or not, this is your moment. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. Psalm 41:9. Betrayal don't come crashing in like a storm. It moves slow, like a shadow at sunset, creeping in so gradually you don't notice the darkness settling in. It don't come from the outside. It comes from the inside, from the ones you called family, the ones you let close enough to see your heart, the ones who swore they'd never turn on you, and yet they did. Not with an open attack, not with words spoken in broad daylight, but with silence, with deception, with a smile that felt just a little too forced, a hug that didn't hold the same warmth. They moved carefully, made sure you never saw the knife coming, until it was already in your back. At first, you questioned yourself, thought maybe you were imagining it, because how could someone who once stood beside you be working against you? But discernment don't lie. The truth had been there all along, in the way they hesitated when you needed them most, in the way they stood neutral when you were being wronged, in the way they benefited from your downfall, but never once extended a hand to stop it. They thought you wouldn't notice, thought you'd be too broken to see the pattern, thought they could rewrite the story and walk away unscathed. But let me tell you something. God don't let his chosen ones stay deceived forever. The veil lifted, the fog cleared, and now you see them for who they truly are. And the best part? They know you see it. They move forward like nothing happened. Try to pretend the damage don't exist. Try to convince themselves they got away with it. But deep down, they feel the weight of what they did. See, when someone betrays you, they don't just lose you. They lose access to everything attached to you. They lose the favor that covered them when they stood beside you. They lose the protection that came from being connected to you. They lose the privilege of standing close to someone chosen. And that's a consequence no apology can undo. They assumed they were invisible, thought no one would ever know, thought they could outmaneuver justice. But the thing about truth, it always finds its way to the surface. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. And now the whole world is about to see. The truth was an inconvenience to them, a loose thread in the story they needed to control. Before you could speak, they rewrote the script, casting themselves as the ones wronged, twisting events until they emerged unscathed. Their survival depended on distortion, on making sure no one questioned their version of events, least of all you. They didn't fear confrontation or outrage. They feared the moment you saw things clearly. Clarity was their undoing, because once the truth was spoken aloud, their carefully woven illusion would unravel. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. They never sought resolution, only silence, not peace, not reconciliation, but your absence in the narrative. For too long, you played the part they expected, swallowing words in the name of dignity, convincing yourself that walking away was the strongest move. And perhaps it was, for a time. But there's a stark contrast between choosing stillness and being rendered voiceless. There's a vast difference between wisdom and submission. Silence can be a weapon, but only when wielded by choice, not when forced into the hands of the wounded. Taking the high road was never meant to be a sentence, a punishment that forces you into invisibility. It was meant to be a choice, a path of purpose. But what happens when it only serves those who inflicted harm? When your silence becomes their greatest shield? Enough. The time for quiet endurance has ended. Speaking up is not about revenge or proving something to them. It is about reclaiming your own power. It is about refusing to let your truth be erased. The high road was never meant to strip you of your voice, and today you refuse to walk it in silence. They wrapped themselves in virtue, not to seek redemption, but to avoid accountability. Their words were not prayers for justice, but pleas for your compliance. They spoke of morality while hoping their own misdeeds remained buried. Yet no mask can withstand the weight of reality forever. Every whispered justification, every desperate attempt to rewrite history has been noted, not just by you, but by forces far greater than them. The universe does not bend to deception, and the truth has never needed permission to rise. The reckoning they tried to outrun is already here. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. Psalm 41:9. Betrayal don't come from strangers. It comes from the ones who stood beside you, the ones who knew your heart, the ones who called you family. They didn't attack you outright. They moved in silence, chipping away at your trust while smiling to your face. At first, you questioned yourself. Maybe you ignored the feeling, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But discernment don't lie. They knew exactly what they were doing. And worse, they knew you would never do the same to them. But here's what they never saw coming. You didn't break, you woke up. They thought they had you fooled, thought you would stay blind, thought you would never see the truth. But God don't let His chosen ones stay deceived. The veil lifted, the illusion shattered, and now you see it all. And now they feel the absence. They lost access to you, lost the covering that came with being in your presence. They thought they were winning, but losing you was the real consequence. And the best part, you don't have to do a thing. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark 4:22. Because when the truth rises, you won't even have to say a word. They mistook your stillness for surrender, believing they had stripped you of your fire. They thought if they tore you down, erased your name, silenced your voice, they could step into what was meant for you. But no imitation can hold what wasn't built for them. Even in the moments you doubted, even in the depths of your uncertainty, you were always ahead. They ran a race you were never part of, chasing a crown that was never within their grasp. And now, as you shed the remnants of the past, you rise, not as a version of what you were, but as something entirely new. The transformation is complete. The weight of expectation, the shadows of their deceit, the roles they tried to force upon you, gone. This is not just a return. This is a rebirth. And nothing terrifies them more than seeing you fully awakened, untamed, and unstoppable. They spent their energy trying to dismantle you, convinced that if they struck hard enough, you'd fall and never rise again. They lied, they imitated, they wove intricate traps meant to ensnare you. But their biggest mistake was underestimating your patience. While they played short-sighted games, you played for the long run. While they schemed in circles, you moved with purpose. You let them think they were ahead. Let them waste their breath crafting stories. Let them exhaust themselves in battles they created. And now, the facade has collapsed. The false power they paraded has crumbled into nothing. They wanted to control the game, but they never realized they weren't even holding the board. Every move they made, every deceitful step they took, only tightened the snare around them. You never had to fight them. They destroyed themselves. And now, as the dust settles, the truth is clear. There was never a competition. You were always the force they feared, the final threshold they could never cross. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. They thought they could outrun the truth, slip through the cracks, rewrite the story in their favor. But let me tell you something. Truth don't need permission, and justice don't need an invitation. You can cover up a seed for a season, but when the time is right, that thing is gonna break through the soil, whether they like it or not. And when it does, there's no hiding what's been growing beneath the surface. For too long, they walked like kings in a kingdom built on deception, thinking the walls would never shake, that the ground beneath their feet would never crumble. They moved in the dark, whispered in secret, and plotted behind closed doors, believing the light would never find them. But God don't let no lie last forever. The weight of their own actions is pressing down, and their foundation ain't as steady as it used to be. Relationships once built on convenience start feeling like burdens. The once loyal followers start looking for the exits, and the power they thought would last starts slipping right through their fingers. At first, they don't even recognize what's happening. They call it bad luck. They say it's just a rough season. But let me tell you something. Ain't no season can save what was never meant to stand. The very energy they use to manipulate, to control, to twist reality to their liking, is boomeranging back with force. They spent their days spinning illusions, thinking their words alone could hold up a house made of sand. But when the storm comes, when the weight of truth presses in, the cracks become too big to ignore. They smile through the pressure, tell themselves everything's fine. But deep down, they know. The late nights staring at the ceiling, the sudden distance in the people they trusted, the way even their own words don't sound as convincing anymore. It's all catching up. And here's the thing. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to chase. You don't have to argue. You don't have to fight. Because what's already in motion cannot be stopped. They spent so long thinking they were the ones in control, the ones pulling the strings, the ones setting the stage. But the stage has been flipped, the script has been rewritten, and now they are the ones being watched. And when it all falls, because it will, there will be no more excuses, no more distractions, no more running. The same way they built their power is the same way it will be stripped away, not because you demanded it, not because you sought revenge, but because what they built was never real to begin with. And let me tell you something else. This ain't just about them. This is about you stepping into what was always yours. You didn't lose. You didn't fall behind. You were being positioned. Because in the end, God don't just balance the scales, he flips them. And when he does, there's no going back. There is no need to chase justice. It is already in pursuit. No retaliation is necessary, no effort required. The weight of their own deception is pulling them under. The scales always balance, and no amount of manipulation can tip them forever. Watch closely. Watch as the very narrative they spun turns against them, as the lies they built their world upon begin to crack under the pressure of reality. Truth does not whisper. It does not request permission. It crashes through falsehoods, dismantles illusions, and leaves nothing untouched. They thought they could control the perception, that they could dictate how the story would be told. But now, their voices are drowned out, overpowered by something far greater, the undeniable, inescapable force of truth. No more diversions, no more deceit, only the harsh reckoning they tried so desperately to outrun. Now, with nowhere left to hide, they stand amidst the ruins of their deception, fully exposed. The walls they built to protect their lies are crumbling, and the whispers they once controlled now carry a truth they cannot silence. The weight of their past actions presses down, suffocating them the way they once sought to silence others. But this is no longer just about them. What was once hidden is now a beacon, a signal to those who have long suffered in silence. One voice becomes many, a rising force that refuses to be ignored. This is more than personal vindication. This is disruption, a breaking of the cycle. And cycles, once shattered, do not reform. This is not about vengeance. It is about liberation. And now, with the chains of silence broken, there is no turning back. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. Betrayal don't hit you all at once. It moves slow, like poison in the water, undetectable at first, until one day everything tastes different. It don't come from outsiders, don't come from people standing at a distance. It comes from those who once walked beside you. Sometimes it's the ones tied to you by blood, the ones who should have been your shield, but instead chose silence. They saw the truth, or at least felt it stirring, but instead of standing with you, they turned away. Not because they didn't care, but because comfort was easier than courage. Keeping the peace meant more to them than protecting you. And when you finally spoke up, they called you bitter, called you dramatic, not because you were wrong, but because your truth made them uncomfortable. Then there were the others, the ones who smiled in your face while secretly betting against you, the so-called friends, the co-workers who clapped when you walked in, but whispered when you left. They didn't want to see you fall, not exactly, but they didn't want to see you rise either. But here's the thing, they never saw coming. Every cut, every deception, every single moment of disloyalty didn't break you. It made you sharper. They thought they were winning, thought they had the upper hand, thought they could keep you blind, keep you guessing, keep you stuck. But God don't let his chosen ones stay in the dark forever. And now, they feel the weight of what they've done. Now they scramble. Now they rewrite history. Now they pretend they were always in your corner. But you remember. You remember every excuse, every moment they chose self-preservation over loyalty, cowardice over integrity. They assumed you'd let it slide, assumed you'd stay quiet. But time always brings the truth to the surface. And the best part? You don't have to say a word. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark 4:22. Because the truth, it's already speaking for itself. They will claim you have changed, but in reality, You have simply returned to yourself, no longer shrinking to make others comfortable, no longer silencing your instincts for the sake of keeping the peace. The weight of deception no longer rests on your shoulders. It never belonged to you in the first place. If they wanted to be seen differently, they should have acted differently. Some betrayals serve as lessons, others as warnings. Now you understand the difference. Long before the lies unraveled, before the facade cracked, before the betrayals surfaced, you already knew. That deep, unshakable feeling, the quiet voice in the back of your mind, the unease you dismissed because you wanted to believe in them more than you believed in yourself. You gave them grace even when every instinct told you not to. But clarity comes as it always does. Gradually, then all at once. The patterns became undeniable, the truth impossible to ignore. What you once called doubt was intuition. What you dismissed as paranoia was foresight. And now, you trust it. You no longer wait for proof to validate what your soul already knows. They deceived you once, but they will never deceive you again. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. They thought they were so clever, thought they could move through the world unnoticed, slipping past judgment, covering their tracks with pretty words and empty smiles. But let me tell you something. The dark don't stand a chance when the light shows up. You don't have to chase it, don't have to force it, because when the time is right, the truth will always stand up and speak for itself. See, they thought they were outpacing you, thought they had built something so airtight that nothing could expose it. But while they were running in circles, weaving their web of deception, you weren't behind, you were ahead. You were sitting still, watching, waiting, letting everything unfold exactly as it was meant to. Because clarity don't come on your schedule. It don't come when you want it. It comes when the timing is divine. And now, the fog has lifted, the dust has settled, and what was once hidden is standing out in the open. They tried to keep you confused, tried to make you doubt what you knew in your spirit. But discernment don't lie. You didn't imagine the signs. You didn't misunderstand the warnings. They were there all along, guiding you, shaping you, preparing you for this very moment. And now, you see everything. Every game, every half-truth, every little trick they used to stay ahead. But here's the thing. They were never ahead. Because this was never about them being exposed. This was about you being elevated. See, God don't waste time. Every delay, every moment of silence, every time you wanted to call it out but didn't, that wasn't weakness. That was strategy. The universe wasn't punishing you. It was positioning you. You were never being held back. You were being trained. Every obstacle, every frustration, every time you had to bite your tongue, it was sharpening your vision, strengthening your resolve. Because you weren't just meant to survive this, you were meant to rise from it. And now that you see, there's no going back. There's no need to fight, no need to argue, no need to prove a thing. Because the moment you stepped out of their game, you won. Their power over you wasn't real, it was an illusion. And illusions only work if you believe in them. But you don't believe the lies anymore. So now, they no longer exist in the space you walk. You don't need revenge. You don't need payback. Because distance is the real justice. Elevation is the real answer. And as you rise, they will watch. Oh, they will watch. And they will wonder why nothing they do seems to shake you anymore. They will wonder why the same old tricks don't work. And the truth is, it's because you don't live there anymore. You've moved on. You've moved higher. And that's a level they will never reach. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10:4. And baby, the strongholds have fallen. This was never a solitary fight. For every attempt to undermine you, there were unseen hands steadying your path. For every betrayal meant to break you, there were forces reinforcing your strength. The support surrounding you, both visible and hidden, became an unshakable foundation, a force greater than the chaos they tried to create. They envied not just your resilience, not just your truth, but the unwavering presence of those who truly saw you. Their plan was isolation, to make you believe that when the truth emerged, you would stand alone. They underestimated the energy that moves in your favor. Those who were meant to walk beside you never wavered, never fell for the illusions woven by deceitful tongues. And now, as the final reckoning unfolds, as reality sets in, and justice moves where they once believed themselves untouchable, you remain anchored, not in anger, not in fear, but in the power of those who have always stood with you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They thought they could hold back what was coming. They thought their words, their lies, their manipulations could stand against what was already written. But let me tell you something. When God says it's time, nothing can stop it. See, they built their house on sinking sand. They stood so tall, so proud, thinking they were untouchable, thinking their foundation was unshakable. But a house built on lies can't stand when the storm comes. And the storm is here. They tried to block the truth, tried to twist the story, tried to keep their version of events alive. But truth is like a flood. You can't stop it. You can't contain it. You can't control where it flows. The walls they built to keep themselves safe are starting to buckle. The people they once controlled are beginning to ask questions. The same ones who clapped for them, who stood by them, who believed in their story, they're starting to see the cracks. And here's the part they never saw coming. The more they tried to silence you, the louder the truth became. They thought they were pushing you down, thought they were burying you, thought they had the power to erase you. But what they failed to understand is that you weren't being buried, you were being planted. Because let me tell you something, when God plants you, no man can stop your growth. You were never fighting this battle alone. Every person who ever had their voice stolen, every heart that's ever been broken by deception, every soul that's ever been dismissed and disrespected, they are standing with you now. This is not just your victory. This is a rising. And now they are panicking. They feel it. The shift, the weight of what they've done, pressing in on them. The energy they put into keeping you down is coming back around. The foundation they built their power on is starting to crumble beneath their feet. They wanted you to feel small. They wanted you to feel powerless. But what they didn't realize is you were never alone in this fight. You are part of something bigger, a force they can't hold back, a movement they can't control. This is divine justice in motion. And here's the part that really stings for them. There's nothing they can do to stop it. No matter how much they scramble, no matter how many lies they try to spin, no matter how desperately they try to rewrite history, it's too late. The story is no longer in their hands. So let them panic. Let them scramble. Let them try to figure out how to clean up the mess they made. Because this is their reckoning. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. Luke 1:52. And you, chosen one, are rising. The shift is here, and there is no going back. The days of second-guessing are over. The era of shrinking yourself for their comfort has ended. You have stepped fully into your power, and they can feel it. They will attempt to undermine you, to pull you back into the shadows, to make you question whether standing in your truth was worth it. But the difference now is that doubt no longer has a hold on you. You no longer entertain their games, no longer seek validation from those who were never invested in your growth. They sense the change, the inevitability of their own downfall, the weight of the consequences they tried so desperately to avoid. Every lie they built their world upon is collapsing beneath them. Every false story they spun is unraveling in plain sight. They once wanted you to fear this moment, but now, as it unfolds, it is they who stand in terror. So keep moving forward, unshaken, unstoppable. You do not need revenge. You do not need rage. Truth itself is your greatest weapon, and it is already winning. Their time has run out, and yours has only just begun.